Welcome back. That was Andrei Chelistchev. I pronounced the name properly again. Our next guest is in the studio as well. He's been here before, Dr. Andy Martin from Cambridge.
Hi, Rob.
How are you?
Pleasure to be here back. Thanks for inviting me back.
Yeah, I'm glad that you could come. We have to talk a little bit about our dinner the other night with Lee Child. We're not going to talk as much about Lee. We're going to talk about you and your books and your work, but there's just something so sophisticated about Brits, and I wanted to say, actually, it was
complete delusion.
July 4th that I had dinner with the two of you. So an American on the 4th of July with two Brits. I'm not sure what exactly that's representative of.
It's a bridge. Now the British Empire is making its comeback. We want you on board again.
But you pronounced the word Renaissance so beautifully the other night. It almost made me weep because of my lack of sophistication. It reminded me working with Jonathan Hunt on Fox News, who's now a chief correspondent in L.A. when we were watching horse jumping with dressage. Can you say the word for me, please?
Well, okay, let's give me the French.
I've got a lot of pressure on you.
It's been a French accent, dressage. But, we tend to say garage and stuff like that.
I thought it was garage. Oh.
Yeah, exactly. But, garage is kind of classier sounding. So I can do that. Okay, I can do Cockney, though.
Well,
it's a jolly holiday with Mary. No, I'm borrowing it from the American version
that's
of
an
Cockney.
American. That's
I know.
us.
I'm doing American Cockney.
I heard Dick Van Dyke has claimed he was like nearly beaten to death when he went to London after the Mary Poppins premiere because we don't talk like that, you idiot. And the other thing is, we're really talking about tangential here. I've noticed, despite having a heavy accent, Paul McCartney just sings normally, but Dick Van Dyke was singing with this really bad Cockney accent in the movie. Little did he know. Yeah.
It's a question about Lee Child's accent, actually. I mean, is he American or British? I mean, he's a synthesis now. I think I'm moving in your direction, by the way, Rob. I'm trying to sound more like you. You're trying to sound like me. Oh, yes. We'll meet in the middle.
Lee is very soft-spoken.
He's in between, though, isn't he?
He's very soft-spoken. Yeah. So he's working, I think, on. I hope you're listening to this show, Lee. The Jailhouse Whisper he's perfecting.
Yeah, it's the iron fist in the velvet glove, though, isn't it? Actually,
yes.
Packs a punch. But you're right. It's the softly spoken.
You have to lean in to listen to what he's going to say, and it draws you in. Before he decides whether he's going to kill you or not. So, we discussed so many things the other night. You want to talk a little bit about your book? We've discussed it before, but now as we hit summer, we want to boost the sales a little bit.
It's okay if you insist.
Yes, I do.
I'm easy. Whatever you say.
Your book is Reacher Said Nothing, which is, again, as John Land described in the show, you've really made it as a writer when another successful writer comes and writes about you writing, which you did with Lee Child. And I know it. Every time I tell anybody this story, especially other writers, they find it very very compelling.
It's kind of weird, though, isn't it? I mean, I hope it's wonderful, but it's definitely weird. And I sometimes think you should have a subtitle, which is, because the actual subtitle is the making of Make Me, because I was watching him write that one book. But I think a more fun title would be The Vampire and the Parasite. But I don't know. Just throw that out there.
What makes it what's so great about the creative process is, and I'm always mystified by it because I'm a writer. I've done a wide range of things, but there are certain things that I know I would never be able to do, and I could see myself trying to watch Lee write and think like, he typed a G. Then I didn't pay attention for a while and was on Twitter, and I saw him type an A and a B together. Okay. He drank coffee, and you made a compelling book out of it.
Well, the way you just presented it there, I would never have started this whole darn thing if I'd spoken to you beforehand. That's for sure. You would have killed it.
I would have talked you out of it.
Yeah,
what are you,
completely.
Crazy?
Why don't you do something sensible for a change, man? But, it seemed like a good idea at the time. I come out of this tradition, as you know. I mean, my day job is being an academic at Cambridge, and French academic specifically. There's a famous theory which comes from a great French critic, Roland Barthes, and he is wonderful, but he said, rather as Nietzsche said, God is dead. He said the author is dead. for the death of the author. And, it's popular among academics who like to think, all authors are basically dead anyway. And, we can ignore actually what authors say, and we're just going to read the words and we can say what we like about it. Which, okay, I can understand that attitude, and it's kind of plausible. However, if one turns that around and says, well, actually, no, some authors are actually living. I mean, Lee is living. Okay, Chaucer and Shakespeare, a bit harder to have a bit of a chat with. But I thought, well, hold on, he's still around. Let's check in with him, see what he thinks he's doing, instead of, me just kind of speculating philosophically from afar, just get close. Plus, I always thought that maybe if you got close to the actual writing, to the
I just hit the mic if everybody heard that noise. I'm sorry.
There's a big drama right there, but it wasn't.
It was like
it was not
a rolling thunder
that.
of a drum roll, as if you were about to really impart something very important information.
You probably made listeners jump a mile there, actually. But
how many car crashes just happened?
You see, I mean, I should probably come and do a book about Rob Taub, actually, as he is presenting the show. And
Rob watching
the drama,
as he watches lots of.
That was the day Rob bashed the mic. Wow, that's going to be a big chapter, man.
I watch usually 8 movies in one night, parts of different movies. I'm a serial clicker, but I do now. In getting in seriously, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and germs, what you've done, because I was thinking back now, and you mentioned academic and academia. When I was in college, and this brief period where I thought maybe I wanted to become a professor, till I realized I had to write a PhD thesis, and I was reading theses in the lobby, and you'd see what academics focused on. And I remember finding one, and actually then it was a book. We were talking medieval literature.
Right.
People wrote loads of books about Grendel. Then there was a guy who wrote a book about Grendel's mother, and I thought, wow. Like 390 pages about Grendel's mother, and really, who cares? Then there are like 4 other people. Have you read that book about Grendel's mother? Yeah, it was okay. But so you've taken this academic diligence and brought it into popular culture.
Well, yeah, I hope so. Again,
you have.
The Grendel's mother analogy is not promising, is it? But
no, nobody's going to read that. But the amount of work and diligence and lack of money that the guy made about writing about Grendel's mother.
May I say, you're obviously a great loss to the Academy, by the way, actually. But my own relationship with the Academy, I've written about a few different things over the ages, and I think of Lee Child, and your suggestion is it's something very kind of like the opposite. But I see it's like a kind of continuum, because when I have written about those great French writers, Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus in the past, and, I see Jack Reacher, Lee Child's great hero, as very much a kind of existential hero. So I see there's a kind of connection there. And funny enough, the guy who taught me in Paris in bygone days, when I was doing my PhD, the great thesis, was actually Jacques Derrida, who is the philosopher of deconstruction. And it's easy to see there's a natural connection between Jack Reacher and deconstruction, because obviously he takes people apart quite regularly. So therefore, that's a kind of, as it were, he is doing physically what a philosopher like Derrida does verbally. But there is one thing that strikes me, and everyone wants to know, well, how does Lee Child do it? And there is one little kind of secret, I think, at the core of someone like Derrida, hence seeing a connection, because one of his key concepts is the notion of postponement, or défiance, deferral, but specifically postponement. And I think someone like Lee, he works a lot with postponement. I mean, because obviously things are happening all the time, but you'll find if you look beyond, as it were, the action hero factor, which is huge, okay, in his work, that the stuff where of not knowing, the postponing of a revelation, the withholding of information, is so kind of crucial. So I don't know, I think part of the key to his work is just not saying too much too soon. Don't be premature with your revelations.
Most of our action heroes and characters in detective novels are facing some sort of existential dilemma.
Yeah.
Hence the link to the French, except the French would pronounce it existential.
So, something like that.
So, in a way that I can't. I do love the part of the French culture that I'm sure you participate in. How do people still have salons?
Yeah.
We have saloons in New York.
It's not quite the same thing. I have participated in a salon bygone days, a weekly one. You know, when I was a student in
That's always
in
been a
Paris. And I
dream of
think that
mine.
That still happens, where you stand around and sit around and discuss literature, and it does
You
happen.
smoke a lot of cigarettes, drink coffee.
But, well, look, to be fair, I was at a July 4th party before I went to dinner with you and Lee, and actually
So you got your infusion of intellectualism
it
from
was
them?
a salon. It was a salon-style gathering, amongst other things. Obviously, people were waving flags and wearing...
Were there Americans there?
Yeah, there were Americans there, and they were wearing very funny things on their heads, like, you know, ears with stars and stripes on and stuff like that.
What's the general... I'm not asking for the person's address or anything. But what's the general location? Set the mood for me.
Well, okay. That particular event that was in Wall Street. In fact, Judge, that was on a rooftop terrace in Wall Street. So it was a real mix of, in fact, nationalities for one thing, because there were a lot of native New Yorkers around, but there were a few. There was a French guy, in fact, visiting, which kind of put this in my mind. Was having a chat with him in French, guy from Paris. So it was very international. I mean, this thing about New York is, thinking in terms of the great Camus book, The Outsider, I know translates The Stranger here, it is a kingdom of outsiders. And this is why I always feel, I mean, you were born here, but I always feel incredibly welcome here because I'm one of the outsiders, like the rest of you, kind of thing. So it's a very cool place. But yeah, I mean, that particular event, it was a spectrum of conversations. So we'd having funny conversations about, you know, American independence and what a great country this is. And not everyone agreed with that, mainly Americans, by the way, actually. And also, you know, discussing Albert Camus and, you know, Meursault and indeed Lee Child as well, actually. So, you know, it is very much, one talks about the Academy, it's not, you know, a kind of ivory towers cut off kind of place anymore. I mean, I think you've got to be able to engage with everyone else, and it's not just all about somebody's mother and 300 pages of very obscure esoteric.
I was picking the most obscure thing.
Yeah, okay. It's, you know, you can engage. I mean, culture is very huge. Let's face it. What you know, where does it start? Where does it stop? I mean, whatever is interesting. I mean, I'm guided, I suppose, to some extent by, if you think Umberto Eco among writers that who recently died, of course, actually, wonderful writer who, you know, bestrode the spectrum in many ways, because people will be aware, I think, above all, perhaps, of that great novel of his, The Name of the Rose. Brilliant novel.
Yes.
But he also wrote some great academic works, Theory of Semiotics, brilliant. But he also wrote a collection of essays and wrote short pieces for an Italian newspaper, Il Giornale, I forget which one now, in which he would write about things like, well, the latest James Bond movie, for example, springs to mind, actually. And he took that, he approached that with a degree of seriousness. Okay, what does it mean? And I think I kind of tend to take that, I borrow that from, but in fact, he had a funny line. I met Umberto Eco a couple of times, and lovely guy, very funny. I spoke a bit of Italian, a bit of English with him, and so on. And I remember one person asked him this quite tricky question, which is to do with being an academic and trying to reach a broader public, and in his novels and so on. And he said, the question was addressed to him, in fact, by a woman. She said, okay, well, look, Umberto Eco, on the one hand, you're writing all this kind of, you know, rather like your 390-page thesis and so on, rather dry, analytical stuff. On the other hand, you're writing this racy, popular, serious, but definitely not solemn, but very accessible fiction. You know, how do you reconcile those two? And his funny answer to that, I remember, was even a gynecologist can fall in love. You know, you can wear the white coat, as I sometimes do when I'm analyzing the works of Lee Child, but you also can feel, you have the passion, you have to love the thing you're doing, I think, at the same time, all being well.
You're what my people would call a Hamisher guy.
Oh, yeah. What is that? Yeah, that's is that good or bad?
You're a regular person,
okay.
Even though you're smart and sophisticated and bilingual or multilingual. Okay, yeah. And we just got a notification from the booth. We've been talking for 15 minutes. It seems unfathomable. It feels just like a couple of minutes.
That means you're going to shut me up in a minute.
No, I'm not.
Fully
But
understand.
you know what I'm wondering? Are we talking Umberto Eco? Is that also Arturo Ui? Where does it? Why am I? That's coming to mind.
Yeah, that no, he didn't do that. But
Okay, yeah,
yeah,
but
it sounds similar, doesn't it?
it sounds similar.
Yeah.
It shows how actually
That wasn't one
limited
of
my
his.
knowledge is about
No.
everything. I don't know where the
We're all-
Grendel
we're all
reference.
limited. No,
I do.
you.
I'll give you a little analogy.
Yeah,
I was just
please.
at the Boxing Writers of America Association dinner, which was a combination of great writers and some scary thugs and great boxers. And
Right. Oh.
Joyce Carol Oates was there,
All right.
and she received an award.
Right.
To which somebody sitting next to me said, "Wow, a woman up there on the stage looks remarkably like Joyce Carol Oates." And I said, "It is Joyce Carol Oates." But so we do cover that slightly in our
Norman
country, but
Mailer reminds me of, actually wrote that great book, The Fight, of course, actually written so much. but
yes, and
one
and
of the great
Dead.
New Yorkers, and
Yes, Naked and the Dead is one of
Yeah.
the greatest books I've ever read.
yeah,
I
one of the
think.
top novels, Second World War. But yeah, and he bestrode the culture undoubtedly, and I would like to say he's a bit of a model of mine. I did meet Mailer once. I think I mentioned you. We
Yes,
ended up
you and I have discussed
we were
this.
discussing blondes mainly, actually, but in a serious way.
Yes.
The meaning of blondes.
Well, I wish we could continue the discussion further. I don't want to end on that anvil dropping on the table of the meaning of blondes. But that's my issue with Starbucks just now. I'd like please give me the blonde. They've obviously done this purposely to create sexual harassment suits. They have
yeah.
the tall drink and then the blonde
Right.
blend. So I'd like a tall blonde. Please, sir, I'm very offended.
How'd you get-
I never. Today was like the first time I've been to a Starbucks in many years because our coffee machine wasn't working downstairs. Which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Stribling's New York. You're at 32 6th Avenue, and the Stribling office is downstairs too. So make sure to visit that website. Andy, do you want to tell us about your website if somebody wants to find out more information about you?
Oh, you could find it. Yeah, it's Andy Martin Inc. Spell INK at the end. Yeah, you can find any
And
information
just
on that.
before we wrap, where are you off to? Wyoming?
Oh, yeah, Wyoming. Funnily enough, on a Norman Mailer Fellowship, which earns me a month in a log cabin in Wyoming, which should be great.
Oh.
Really looking forward to it.
It sounds great. I'm off to the Green River in Utah in August, and I don't know if our paths will cross out there, but I hope to see you in New York again soon. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Rob.